Books and Birbs and Mike is Making Stuff. They ask a pair of questions, and I'll read them. Books and Birbs says, as a maker, I find it hard to get over the hump of being dissatisfied with my level of ability. It's easy to not want to continue a project because I can't make it look the way I want to in my head. I feel you. Do you have tips on how to get over or around that? It takes so much joy out of the process. And then Mike is Making Stuff says, you spent decades demystifying science and fabrication. What is one myth about creativity or failure that you wish you could destroy for every aspiring maker before beginning even their first project? I think of these questions as of a piece. I'm going to look up a quote. And it's... Decline. Here we go. Okay. Books and Birbs. Being dissatisfied with your level of ability, i.e., being unhappy with the results of your labor, no matter how hard you worked, is awful. I totally know that feeling. And I have regularly surprised myself through iteration. So what I mean by that is there's only so far you can take a single piece, but with iteration, you can get there. I have had it repeatedly in my life where I make something and the thing I'm making currently is not what I want. But when I get it to as far as I can and then I put it to the side and I make it again, that second one or that third one is usually the one that surprises me. Because I will say that okay, yes. I will say that some of being dissatisfied with the result of your skill, some of that is about the skill, but some of that could be about your expectations. And in that, that's another reason why iteration for me is so important, because it helps me understand what the project wants. I can get lost in the weeds on a single object, but the moment I iterate a second one, all sorts of other information opens up. So my coping mechanism for being dissatisfied with my output is to iterate and to keep on going. And sometimes I make something that's wrong and I have to stare at it for a year or two being mad about my inability to get it where I wanted in order to do it again. I'm working on one right now that I'm just trying to find this right kind of motor interface between the motor and the amount of space I have for motors inside this thing. And just the logistical list of trying to solve that problem has had this project sitting on the back burner for a while. But Mike is Making Stuff asks, is there a myth about creativity or failure that you wish? Okay, so my answer to both of these is about beginning. Books and Birbs, there's part of you that feels like you shouldn't move forward until you have the right amount of something to move forward, i.e. skill or ability to achieve what you want. And the reason I'm giving the advice of iteration is because as long as you're holding yourself back because things aren't ready, nothing's going to happen. And the magic happens when you move forward, when you start. And so to do that, I'm going to read you this quote by Goethe. Goethe wrote Faust, among many other things, amazing German writer. And Goethe says this: until one is committed, there is hesitancy, a chance to draw back concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There is one elementary truth, that ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. So he says providence. That's some idea of God. I think of that as the other that's inside of us, that is part of our culture. But yes, providence moves too. all sorts of things occur. Now I'm reading Goethe again. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. The 18th century, when every average human being was a man. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. That's it. I read the whole quote, but the only thing that's important in there is that last sentence. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it. There is nothing between you and starting. That's the myth I'd love to, that is the truth that I would love everyone to take in. There's no preparation you need to start. When you make something and you see how close you got and you either refine it or move it to the side and do it again and you keep on doing that process, I have found that you will find yourself at the bottom of that process. Yeah, that's really true. All right, I'm really happy with the questions today. This is just so much fun to talk about this stuff. Brian Baker says, you've talked about balancing your work life and your time with family, like how you'd leave the Mythbusters set after a wild time and come home trying to contain your excitement while dealing with your spouse and the twins. Yes, that's true. How did you learn to do this and continue to practice this method of making yourself available to your personal life while excited about work? How does Mrs. Don't Try This help you with the realization and the practice of this principle? Well, the answer is she's my partner. And it's not like she helps me with this realization. She's intrinsic to the operation. So I think of my partnership with my wife as a collaborative working environment. We have a life together. That life has all sorts of moving parts, and I feel the moral value in me as a partner is that the labor of moving those moving parts is equally distributed between the two of us. With each of us sort of paying attention to the flow of our days, both individually and together. But it's an ongoing project. It's funny, there's this way in which, like, if you give me a time to hit, I will hit it because I love being punctual. Tell me to show up at 1, I'll be there at 12:58. And if I say, hey, if I call my wife and say, I'm going to be here working at the cave until about 5:30, and then I come home at 5:35, and every time I say I'm going to come home at a certain time, I come home about 5 minutes later than that, she starts to get the impression, which is understandable, that I'd rather be there. This is a small, subtle thing. For me, it's just like I want to fill the time I've got. But it's also, if my partner thinks there's some reason I'd rather be here than there, that's not true. I like to be here during the day. I like to be there in the evening. I like to be here most days of the week. And then on the weekends, I do absolutely nothing. We read, we watch TV, we hang out, we sketch, we do our own thing, we spin in our own circles, and we come together. But it is like, to me, what it feels like when it's running correctly is like we're both operating the levers of our house. And every partnership, every relationship is different. Everybody has their own lines in the sand, their own expectations of how things should go. In my experience, for the longest time, I was very gendered about my relationships. I was most often the breadwinner, and thus did a very small share of the actual housework. That's totally not the case anymore. And I no longer want to be. I no longer want to be that. I appreciate knowing how my house operates on the granular level I currently do. It makes me feel more connected to my life, my house, my partnership, and also the cave, frankly. Because the two places, my house and this workspace, are so close to each other, it ends up feeling like very much like sort of one thing. And that's a luxury. That's a real privilege I have right now, because for the longest time, I was out in the world earning dough, and I'd get here very rarely or occasionally, and I would treat it like a scarcity model. But Brian Baker, it is an ongoing process. And a process in which I balance my needs, I balance the needs of my wife, I balance the needs of my partnership, which are three different sets of needs, and the needs of my cave and my shop and my business and my house. Like, yeah, it's a process, man. It's ongoing, absolutely. All right, let's see what's been going on here online. I'm so glad to read you guys that Goethe quote. It is so important. I had it up on my wall for years. Thank you for watching. I wanted to talk to you about Tested membership. The Tested members are a key community that we find really, really remarkable. That's very separate from Tested and from YouTube. The Tested members, they buy each other memberships during our live streams. So if you're wondering whether to become a member, watch one of our live streams and someone may just give you one. It is hard to overestimate how much the Tested members actually make possible on this channel. They give us a lot of wiggle room. They give us a huge amount of feedback.
That's a member right now.
Thank you so much for enjoying your membership. Link in the description for everything you need to know. And for all the members out there, thank you, thank you, thank you.